Hey guys, I want to start this just by saying a huge thank you to everyone who's subscribed for all of the comments and the lovely feedback on my Nishikiyama video, and apologise for being gone for so long. I meant to come back in early January, but I got sick for a while and there's just been a string of pretty shit stuff that's gone on, and it's meant I've not really had the time to make videos. I thought I'd do a quick update first before we get into the video, but of course if you guys want to skip it, I'll put a timestamp on the screen now. So all the bad times aside, I've been doing some background work for the channel. I have a few video scripts nearing completion. I've been working on some ideas for a series I might do on the channel, as well as some thumbnail art to go with them, and also some better banner art is in the works. This thing was meant to be temporary, but I haven't really been able to create something that I'm sure I want to stick with as of yet. I've also been playing around with the idea of an animated end card, but given that I have next to no experience with animation, that is currently a bit of a pipe dream. I'm also in the process of ordering extra cables for my capture card that I need to record PlayStation 3 and pretty much any system that's too old for HDMI. Not only are the next few Yakuza games on those systems, but also loads of other stuff I'd like to eventually cover. I toyed around with emulation. I used it in my Silent Hill video, but from my experience, it's not a reliable way to record. Even if the ROM works fine, sometimes my recording software will just crash, and I just want to make sure that I have the best footage for you guys. In the meantime, I have some videos in the works for things I can actually record, which will hopefully tide you guys over. And finally, I'm also potentially looking to set up a Discord server as an easier means of communication. It's quite difficult with YouTube comments, and while Twitter is good for updates, I'm not a fan of it for general communication. I don't use it very often, I'm not very familiar with it. If I get the Discord worked out, I will definitely update you guys at the beginning of a video. I'll edit all my description links and put the link to it down in the descriptions of my videos. Anyway, moving on to the fun stuff. Here is all the media I have been consuming recently that I particularly really like. So if you've read manga at all, the chances are you've at least heard of Vagabond. It tells the fictional story of the life of Miyamoto Musashi, a famous Japanese samurai born in the late 1500s. Returning home after losing a battle only to find himself labelled an outcast and the target of a giant manhunt, we follow Musashi on his journey to see how far his sword can take him. It's a series I've had my eye on for a while, and so far I absolutely adore it. The art is gorgeously detailed and very graphic when it needs to be. The story is nothing particularly mind-blowing, at least where I'm up to. But the dialogue, particularly in the fight scenes, is actually pretty compelling, and it has a really nice way of managing to surprise me every now and then, with outcomes not always being what you would expect. In between the more epic moments, it's incredibly enjoyable seeing all the plots that weave in and out of the main story. There's some pretty good humour in there too, and there were definitely a few scenes that really got me laughing. It has that feeling similar to the beginning of Berserk, of one man on an epic mission, albeit slightly less gory and much more grounded in reality. While I do really like samurai stories, and I'm pretty inclined to give most anything with them in a look, this feels like a very standout series. Rare is it I put a volume of manga down only to jump straight online and order the next one, but Vagabond has me totally hooked. Keeping up with the samurai theme, I've really been loving Saraya Goyo, or House of Five Leaves. It centers around Akitsu Masanosuke, a skilled swordsman struggling for work due to his weak appearance and nervous nature. He finds himself drawn to Yaichi, the mysterious leader of the House of Five Leaves, who employs him as a bodyguard before revealing that the organization makes a living from ransom money off kidnappings. There's a lot I can say about this show. I might make a full video on it one day. The art style is insanely gorgeous, and it has a very unique feel to it, almost like an old ink painting come to life. In comparison to Vagabond, this is a much more slow-paced experience. Rather than an action-packed samurai showdown, this show focuses a lot more on the subtle moments, with Akitsu just trying to adjust to a more gritty reality than he ever thought he'd have. He might be an intentionally quiet character, but he's by no means dull to watch, and there's a lot of subtlety to his character, especially in his body language and animations when paired with the much more commanding and intriguing Yaichi. Their scenes become quite captivating, and with each episode I'm finding myself more and more absorbed in each character's story. Saraya Goyo might not be a show for action lovers, But if you enjoy stories heavy on character development with a touch of action on the side, that still give off that kind of morbid and melancholy vibe that is the life of a masterless samurai, I definitely recommend it. I was kind of iffy about mentioning this one. I'll be honest with you, it's quite tricky to recommend, but nevertheless I found myself surprisingly enjoying Red Garden after its recent addition to Crunchyroll. It's a story of 4 girls brought together by the death of a mutual friend, only to later discover they all in fact died that night, but the 4 of them were saved. Now trapped in a state between the living and the dead, they must fight against beasts in order to survive. This show is weird. In premise, it's this horror action type show, but really it plays out much more like a drama. It took a few episodes for me to really realise what the show was. There was a lot of scenes that were really genuinely tense where I thought the show would go a much darker route. Rather than the beasts being a force of evil, we actually kind of get to see their side of the story, which kind of throws you off morally a little. Each character gets a fully fleshed out side story that at first can kind of seem like filler, but eventually they do start to deepen and tie into the main plot, and I actually found myself surprisingly enjoying it. It's almost like someone combined elements from Madoka Magica and Nana, and while it doesn't really do either brilliantly, and there were definitely bits I wasn't so keen on, before I knew it I was 3/4 of the way through the 20-something episodes, and so it's definitely done something right. As a side note though, in the first 7 or so episodes, there are these random moments where characters just kind of break out in song for seemingly no reason, and it's perhaps one of the cringiest things I've seen. I'm still quite perplexed as to why they did that. And then also why it just stops at around episode 7. While it didn't ruin the show for me, it was weird and I definitely thought it was worth pointing out. And lastly, for the anime front, I've been keeping up with the new Genji Ito series as it's being released. For anyone that doesn't know, Genji Ito is a horror mangaka with an incredible talent and a real knack for creating horrifically, skin-crawlingly wonderful art, and sadly it never quite translates into other media. That being said, the series itself isn't too bad. It's a fun mix of short horror tales, some more spine-tingling than others, and you can see there's care and attention given to try and capture his style and the feelings his work creates. It's fairly similar to Yamishi Bai in tone, which I did a video on back in October, and I would definitely recommend it for fans of horror, particularly atmospheric and psychological horror. While it can't stand up to his manga, it's still a pretty decent show in itself. And unsurprisingly, most of my free time this past month or so has gone into Monster Hunter Worlds. With the exception of the Wii U port, I've played every Western release of Monster Hunter since 3's initial launch back on the Wii, and it's a series I absolutely adore and am always excited for. It's been incredible jumping into a hyper-detailed HD release after years on the 3DS, and now I finally have dual analog sticks. The combat feels insanely smooth. I think they really nailed what they were going for with the organic feel of the game. In the older versions, I would often really enjoy the expeditions because I really like the slightly more random element of seeing what might turn up. Pretty much all the gameplay in Worlds has that feel. You feel like you're trespassing on monster territory, and the hunt grounds feel unexplored and overgrown. A quest can really feel like an adventure into the unknown, and having a giant beast you've never seen before burst onto screen, make a beeline for the monster you're attacking, and knock it to the ground is both an exhilarating and a terrifying sight to behold. It's also really fun to see destructible map parts and environmental traps coming into play, as it gives the locations much more involvement, making it feel like a living, breathing world. There have been a ton of gameplay tweaks I love, but perhaps my favourite is being able to change weapons and restock items during quest, meaning that staying alive but running out of items no longer feels like a fail state but a mild inconvenience. The new tracking system is fun, albeit a little finicky with some of the flying monsters where the trail will get a little screwed up or just disappear, but it makes the initial search much more fun. Leveling up and tracking and getting better at discovering monsters feels rewarding and really makes multiple runs much easier. Also, with the additions of bounties and investigations, farming for armor upgrades and monster parts feels like a dream. I love that the multiplayer now extends to the story quests in case you need some extra help or just want to co-op with friends. It's a bit of a pain the game forces you to solo quest until you've seen the cutscene. It can slow down the experience if you're trying to move through the story as a group, but the regular multiplayer for hunting is as good as ever. If you're watching this and haven't been sold on the game yet, I highly recommend giving it a try. If this is your first Monster Hunter and you're struggling a little, give it a bit more time. As much as I dislike the analogy, Monster Hunter is similar to the Dark Souls series in the way that patience and learning both your weapon and the enemy has massive payoff. The more you play, the more natural it feels, and combat can go from initially frustrating to some of the most engaging and fluid in a modern action series. Even as an experienced player, there have been many moments where I've had my ass handed to me, and then later when I've learnt the fight, dodging and weaving between attacks with a monster almost feels like a dance in the way it flows. For me, it's those moments that really make Monster Hunter rewarding. Yes, the gear and the weapons are really cool. Yeah, it feels great to up my rank and unlock more monsters and more upgrade options. But it's those moments where you get totally lost in a fight that really make the game special and unique for me. And when I just want to have fun, 4-man co-op can be absolute chaos. With 3 friends and huge weapons and bullets flying everywhere, it creates a totally different experience than the tense 1v1 battles of the single player. While not necessarily easier due to the monster's higher stats and limited feints, it's definitely insane to witness. There's nothing quite like the feeling of taking down a giant beast with some friends before you all proceed to simultaneously swarm on top of its corpse and begin carving. Monster Hunter is one of those games I can accidentally sink hours into, and I absolutely love every minute of it. If anyone is curious, I've been using the insect glaive and bow primarily, but I do enjoy most of the lighter, faster weapons, and occasionally some greatsword action. Each one feels unique to play and satisfying to master, and the more weapons in your arsenal, the more options you have when it comes to tackling those extra tricky monsters. I'm kind of toying with the idea of maybe streaming some Monster Hunter action at some point, so let me know if you'd be interested. Also let me know if you'd like more relaxed videos like this, where I'm going through current favourites or just doing quick looks at games. The in-depth videos aren't going anywhere, but these are also quite fun and much quicker to make. That's it for today, guys. I should have some new videos up very soon. Thank you so much for sticking around and subscribing. Thank you for your patience, and as always, take care and have a wonderful day.